Last night in Philadelphia, Black Lives Matter riots erupted and mass looting erupted after police shot and killed a man who was brandishing a knife and running at them. There is clear video of this. But it doesn't matter. Black Lives Matter went out, began looting and rioting, and we are seeing some of the most troubling scenes we've seen yet throughout the riots this year. There is a video going around showing a pickup truck at a high rate of speed, plowing through a row of police officers and striking one, running them over. Literally. This is not one of those, oh no, the cars are plowing through the protesters thing where NPR shows someone inching at a mile an hour through a crowd while they yell and bang on the car. This was a pickup truck going at a high rate of speed. It's not maybe 30 miles an hour. I don't know. They weren't flying full speed on the street, but they were going fast. They hit the turn and they just slammed right into these cops. There's no way it was an accident. It was intentional. They ran these cops over. I think one cop just got run over. The other, some may have gotten hit. I'm not entirely sure, but it's bad stuff. And I got to say, it's the most insane and absurd thing I have ever seen. We are a week away from an election. Donald Trump is desperately campaigning in Pennsylvania. I know people say he's not desperate. What I mean is Trump is pushing very, very hard. He is fighting tooth and nail to win Pennsylvania, campaigning over and over and over. And I tell you this, you want to turn an urban center red. This is how you do it right before an election. I remember when they took down the statue of Christopher Columbus and these Philly boys came out, just regular guys saying, like, get away from our statue. You're not coming for it. Getting into fights with Antifa. And the city took that statue away. Anyway, these guys are Union Democrat guys. Philadelphia is 80% Democrat. You think people now seeing through this are going to be like, that's what I want. That's the leadership I want. 1 week before an election. This is crazy stuff. We're now hearing Texas is preparing to send 1,000 troops to 5 major cities. D.C. boards up its stores, and Washington State puts National Guard on alert amid fears of post-election violence. Listen, as most of you know, I still live in the Philadelphia area. We've been setting up the studio, so I've been a bit back and forth. But for the most part, I still do live there, and I'm going to be officially relocating soon. But I'm not there right now. We've been setting up this new studio. We've been using the new studio space. And the point is, I don't want to be anywhere near these major cities on election night. And I'm sorry to say, I was right. I mean, you call me wrong. You laugh at me for talking about the unrest and the violence that's coming. Just the other day in Philadelphia, they ran over a cop. I don't want to be anywhere near it. I remember when the riots got bad in June. And like I said, I heard the helicopters near my house and I was in the suburbs. That was surprising. And so the way I see it is, it's always better to be a couple steps ahead. You always want to plan a couple steps ahead. I'm not going to wait until the rioters are outside in my town to leave. I'm going to leave before that happens. Well, now they're in Philadelphia. Now they're in Philly. I'm glad I'm gone. And with the National Guard preparations that are coming, I hope you guys are going to be safe and prepared for what's to come, not just after election night. We don't know. There is serious uncertainty about what's coming November 3rd, November 4th. No idea. No one knows who's going to win. The polls say Joe Biden, but even they're not entirely confident. Here's the story from NBC News. Violence tears through West Philly after deadly police shooting. 30 officers hurt. The violence happened after police shot and killed Walter Wallace, who was seen on video armed with a knife as his mother tried to restrain him. I'm sorry, man. If you've got clear video of a dude with a knife coming at police within a few feet and still people are going to riot. There's no solution in negotiating with the extremists. Black Lives Matter. These riots, they don't want anything other than destruction. Now, I know there are a lot of high-profile Black Lives Matter activists who have done good things. There was one who came out with the Proud Boys to denounce white supremacy. But what we're seeing here, opportunism. They don't care about actual police reform. They just want an opportunity to destroy, to loot, and to steal, and they're doing it. And of course, what do we hear from the left? Quote, in defense of looting. If they came out and said the looters are bad and are causing problems, I would be right there with them, denouncing and say, thank you guys. Thank you for protesting for, against these things. They don't. They like it. They use it. They defend it. Here's the story. Angry crowds took to the streets in West Philadelphia after police shot and killed a man armed with a knife Monday, with some in the crowds throwing rocks and bricks at police and some looting or vandalizing businesses. At least 30 police officers were hurt. Police said one was hospitalized. A 56-year-old sergeant who was struck by a pickup truck at 52nd and Walnut Streets early Tuesday. Her leg was broken. Jeez. Among other injuries. The truck ran her over. All the other officers, except for the one struck by the truck, had been treated and released as of early Tuesday. The violence followed protests in response to the death of Walter Wallace, a black man who police shot and killed Monday in the city's Cobbs Creek neighborhood. Police said several stores were looted, including several Rite Aid stores in West Philadelphia, clothing and shoe stores, and at least one restaurant. They could also be seen trying to break into a check cashing store and going in and out of beauty supply store. And it does appear as though some were trying to break into ATM machines. I mean, this is just bedlam. It's just getting crazy, man. Clothes and merchandise were strewn across the sidewalk and street at 57th and Vine Streets, where the glass screens of 2 ATMs had been bashed in. Police cars and dumpsters were set on fire as police struggled to contain the crowds. More than a dozen officers, many with batons in hand, formed a line as they ran down 52nd Street chasing protesters. Protesters? A police officer broke her leg after being run over, and you say protesters. Wow. Amazing. Police said 5 police vehicles and 1 fire department vehicle were vandalized. More than 30 people were arrested for throwing rocks and bricks at police or looting. There was a police vehicle that was set on fire, and I believe they have stolen something or they broke into a police vehicle. Looting, vandalism, and violence were initially concentrated in West Philadelphia's commercial corridors, but unrest and looting was also reported in other parts of the city, including Center City and North Philly. The looting picked up again before daybreak as people could be seen going in and out of stores. Drivers are being urged to avoid drivers are being urged to avoid the area of 52nd and Chestnut Streets. SEPTA also suspended the Route 52 line due to civil unrest and detoured the Route 21 and 31 lines. Earlier in the night, protesters gathered outside the 18th District Police Headquarters on 55th and Pine Street, as well as the University of Penn Police Headquarters on 40th and Chestnut Streets. The protests, violence, and looting occurred hours after the 27-year-old Walter Wallace was shot and killed by 2 police officers in Cobbs Creek. Investigators said Wallace was armed with a knife when he approached the officers and ignored them when they told him to drop the weapon. Video from a witness showed Wallace walking toward the officers as his mother tried to restrain him. It's unclear in the video, however, whether or not Wallace is holding a weapon. Let me tell you, when you have a knife, okay, and you are within a few feet of a cop, you are the more serious threat. People don't get it. They think because guns are powerful or ranged, that makes them effective at short range relative to a knife. That's just not true. It's not true. And anybody who does any kind of serious combat training, even the Mythbusters can explain this. The Mythbusters did this, and I think they said on average, a person can close 21 feet with a knife and deliver a lethal strike before a cop can get out his weapon and deter and stop this person. Not only that, even if the cop pulls the gun and shoots the person with the knife, they might not go down. And they could deliver a series of fatal strikes very, very rapidly. In a matter of seconds, a person can jab a knife several times. People don't get it, man. They don't get how seriously dangerous knives are. Truck driver runs over cop, and protesters pelt police with bricks as BLM demonstrators and looters swarm Philadelphia. Come on, Daily Mail. Demonstrators? Truck runs over cop. This is crazy stuff. I had to take down some of these photos. I couldn't show them to you. YouTube would censor this video if I showed you some of these photos, how brutal they are. At least 4 officers have been hospitalized. It's more than that. It's a dozen, including one female cop who was struck by a speeding pickup truck that was videoed driving toward a line of officers in the city center. Multiple cars have been set ablaze, at least one cop car. Late in the night, growing anger turned into a violent standoff outside the Philadelphia police headquarters on the 18th District headquarters in the western part of the city, as several officers were injured by bricks and other projectiles thrown at them by a crowd of demonstrators. Demonstrators, over and over again, demonstrators. Violent rioters plowing into a line of police officers. Sorry, not a protest, not a demonstration. You could even call that urban conflict. They took a pickup truck and they plowed into a row of police officers, running over one, breaking her leg, among other injuries. Damn, it's getting nuts out there, man. Well, you really had to give him that many effing shots. The man recording the footage is heard shouting. These people don't get it. They don't care. They don't care. They don't like the cops. So they don't want the cops to defend themselves. They don't want the cops to protect themselves. Give them an excuse. What should have happened? Should those cops get stabbed? I'll tell you what, man. If you are, these cops probably going to go to prison. No joke. They're probably going to go to early lockup, right? So I'm sorry. Let me rephrase this to get more specific. The cops will be arrested and sent to jail, awaiting charges. There will be a press hubbub. These cops are going to go. They're going to get arrested. Hands down. Hands down. They're going to get arrested. You know why? Morality policing is taking hold. It is easier to deal with with arresting two cops who will obey the law than it is to deal with violent mobs that are running cops over. So the police, the DA, the mayor, they're probably going to be like, arrest the cops. It's easier. Don't be surprised. I said this back in June. What cop in their right mind would answer these calls? I'm sorry, man. I know people have said, Tim, you got to understand some of these cops, it's a calling. They want to help people. So when this was a domestic disturbance call, and the cops are like, it's more important that I help these people. I'm not going to worry about myself. Noble, honorable. But you got to secure your own oxygen mask before securing the mask of those sitting next to you. And if you know what happens, if you go there and someone threatens your life, you cannot defend yourself. So why do it? Well, I guess many of these cops are willing to risk their lives, but then willing to take the lives of those who are putting their lives at risk. You see the inherent conundrum here. If you know you are going in a situation where you could lose your life, someone may take your life, well, you're going to lose your life no matter what in potentially different ways. What I mean is, I wouldn't be surprised if these cops get doxxed, if they're forced to flee their homes, and if they get immediately arrested. We saw what happened in Minneapolis. We saw what happened in Georgia. Take a look at what happened in Atlanta, where that guy is running and he turns and he points a taser at the cop, so the cop fires, and they charge him with murder. Yup. And then they claimed the cop kicked the guy when he was down. Think about how psychotic that is. Imagine being that officer. The cop didn't kick anybody. The guy pointed a taser at him. And now that cop, lock up. These two cops, they're going to get locked up. It's going to get bad for the election, man. I'm telling you. And I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just saying, if you think that these people, look at what happened in New York just 2 days ago. A bunch of Trump supporters were waving their little flags, driving around, honking their horns. People started throwing rocks and eggs. And apparently some person walked up to a vehicle and pepper sprayed children. This was not Antifa. These were New York leftists. People don't like it when I say it. They don't like, obviously, I think most people watching are, they want to hear what's going on. But there are a lot of people who get mad. And I assume they're getting mad because they're leftists. They don't like the fact that they look like lunatics. I tell you, man, if Trump loses, I'm going to laugh harder than I've ever laughed. I laughed really, really hard when Trump won in 2016. I will laugh 10 times harder. If you have mass unrest, looting and fires, and you have Democrats constantly defending these people and protecting them, and Trump still loses, wow. It's really funny. I've heard from a lot of people that every election is the most important election. Every election is the fate of the country. Is it? It didn't feel like the 2000 election was the fate of our country. It didn't feel like 2004, 2008, 2012. It felt like elections. 2016 didn't feel like the fate of a nation. 2020 does. 2020 feels like if they win, they're going to appease all of these people. You've got Joe Biden, who's already trying to negotiate. I know the far left is unhappy with Biden because he's not far left enough, but he's far left. He's further left than any of the moderates or traditional liberals would probably want. The left will say this is a progressive nation and stuff like that. Sure, the progressives want stuff, man. regular liberals, probably don't agree with half the stuff that Joe Biden's been saying. But he's not far enough left. But he's going to negotiate. We're going to see these people who are violent. The Democrats are already trying to placate them and give them what they want. You see what's going on in Seattle when they march to the mayor's house. She shuts down the Chaz. Well, in Portland, Antifa mayor is beating Ted Wheeler. I tell you, man, they want to abolish the Constitution. That was an article from the New Republic. It's not some fringe site. It's a very prominent leftist site. They want to abolish the Constitution. They don't like free speech. Fortunately, I guess for a lot of people, they do like guns, the far left. They want to pack the courts. Amy Coney Barrett just got confirmed the other day. And now all of these people are saying, stuff them up, pack the courts, win the Senate, win the presidency. That is the fate of a nation. And the Republicans might lose and Trump might lose. So this is a very serious time in our nation. And I've seen historians say there's never been anything like it. Maybe there has been one other period like it. 1850s. For real. That's what a lot of people have been saying. And it's so crazy to me. We had this tech CEO, this financial technology, Expensify, maybe so not financial tech, but business accounting stuff, sent out a letter to, I guess, millions of customers saying that if Trump is elected, there will be a civil war or something to that effect. They're like, why should he sent out this mass letter to all of his customers saying, vote for Biden. And one of the things like, why should I vote for Biden? And he said, or like, why do you care about Biden? He says, we can't do expense reports during a civil war. These people are talking about it. Texas Guard said troops would be sent to Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, and San Antonio. Major General James K. Brown of the Guard said the move would offer support to local law enforcement, as we did previously, to deter any civil disturbances at sites in various cities within Texas. In the nation's capital, businesses close to the White House began to board up their windows Monday. Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills will also board up ahead of November 3rd in anticipation of violence. In Washington state, up to 300 National Guard soldiers are undergoing training to handle civil unrest. NYC has similar plans in place as the NYPD is training every day and deploying hundreds of extra cops. FBI and local officials in several states have also been conducting drills and running through worst case scenarios to improve coordination on reports of violence and voter intimidation ahead of the election. I'll tell you what I think is going to happen. I think there's going to be mass violence. I don't know who's going to win because both sides refute. There is no compromise. I had a friend say to me recently, Tim, we can fix all of this. We just need to get people to listen and to understand. And I'm like, I'm sorry, that's very naive. I don't believe that there's going to be a compromise. You know, Antifa, they're neo-segregationist. When we see in Seattle, the library segregated, they're doing the segregated workforce trainings. I'm sorry, I'm not going to compromise with that. There is no circumstance where I'm like willing to accept any amount of neo-segregation. It's not going to happen. So what do we do? How many of you, liberal, conservative, moderate, or otherwise, refuse to allow these people to instill their racist policies, their segregation policies? Probably very few. I don't think that there can be a compromise in certain capacities. There's not going to be a time where we are happy allowing them to segregate based on race. And they're doing it in California. The Democrats voted to repeal their civil rights legislation to allow them to discriminate based on race. I don't see a compromise in that. And so I'll tell you what, it seems like if Joe Biden wins, we have right now the World Economic Forum proposing something called the Great Reset, where they want to use the COVID crisis for some kind of intersectional economic overhaul, whatever that means. Joe Biden wanted the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Joe Biden would sell out our manufacturing base. It really does feel like there is international interest versus national interest. For me, I think we are a country, and if you want to enact these policies, you don't do it by having people riot in the streets. You don't do it by shutting down everyone's economies or whatever. Now, the World Economic Forum is saying because of COVID causing this collapse of our economies, it's an opportunity to like realign things. Well, the Democrats are the ones who shut down their economies. Republicans didn't do it so much. I'm not saying there's a grand conspiracy at all. I'm saying I think that the pieces are being aligned to where the Democrats will likely embrace a World Economic Forum Great Reset ideal, and Donald Trump will not. Donald Trump will say American borders, the American people, the American economy. And the Democrats will say international coordination, Great Reset, World Economic Forum, etc. Some people like that. Some people don't. The point is, you've got two very, very different worldviews right now. And the bigger issue for me is not some Great Reset, whatever they're trying to propose. It's just the World Economic Forum doesn't necessarily have the power to change anything in the United States. The problem I see is leftist identitarianism, intersectionality, neo-segregation, etc. They're trying to create a world in which people are being segregated based on race. Some groups are demonized over others. Some are told that they have inherent privileges, and it is extremely racist, and it's not what we had fought so hard for. Civil rights movement, the protests from decades ago. It's remarkable to me that people don't realize this. My family, my parents were born before civil rights and before Loving v. Virginia. People don't understand that. That we are one, like, this is not some, we've not had this victory for a very long time. Our parents, all of our parents, many of them were born before civil rights. Well, for millennials, if you're Gen Z, then probably, maybe not, depending on how old your parents were. Before the civil rights were signed, the Civil Rights Act, before Loving v. Virginia made it legal to cohabitate with people who weren't the same race as you. It's not even been a generation. And they're already trying to remove this stuff in California when they repealed these laws. I'm sorry, man. I will not negotiate with that. I will not allow them or give them any excuse, but it's for affirmative action. I don't care. I don't care what your plan is. You are not repealing civil rights law that we fought so hard for. Because I know what that means to my family, and that means there's not going to be a compromise with whatever this is. I don't know what that ultimately leads to, but I think it's going to lead to violence, and I'm worried about it. Anybody who wants this is stupid. Anybody who wants violence is stupid. They've never experienced it. People don't get it. I remember growing up, people used to joke about zombie apocalypse and how fun and funny it would be. And I remember a friend of mine had a joke where he said, I want and encourage a zombie apocalypse. It's hilarious because we watch these movies and it's fun and exciting. It's like, oh, zombies, and you get to loot the store and eat whatever you want and then like fight zombies. I tell you, man, people who have never truly experienced conflict don't get it. I'm sure many of you have served in combat get it. And maybe you're hardened by it for sure. But people who don't understand that feeling, it's like being a rabbit in a field where you're constantly standing there wide-eyed, looking around, shaking your head, where's it coming from? What's going to be? Adrenaline pumping, stress, maximum stress, elevated heart rate. You don't know where that predator's coming from. I've been in these conflicts and you're alert the whole time. You don't want that coming to your neighborhood where you can sit back, lean back, put on the game, enjoy yourself. You don't want this. I don't know what to expect. I just think that there's going to be mass unrest, and hopefully that's the extent of it. But I guess there are people who want it. I guess there are people who are hungry for it, and this is their opportunity, and that's terrifying. And it's not just Black Lives Matter. It's not just Antifa. It's just crazy people. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.